Hello everyone, this is the Soda Popcast, episode 6. Today is August 25th of 2017. We have a very special podcast today. While normally this is a monthly streamed podcast where we talk about video games, primarily Nintendo games, this time we're actually going into the realm of movies, films, whatever you want to call them. We going to be talking about movies and stuff. It's been a relatively slow news month for Nintendo news. It's actually been a little bit more than last time, I think, but we're definitely going to be going over that in future podcasts. But for now, we just want to talk about movies because we also happen to like movies. My name is Patnet, and today my beverage of choice is a Canada Dry. So that's pretty neat. And to my left is Tom Peeler's doppelganger, who's also going to introduce himself.
Hi, I am MrViperFang, and my soda of choice today is a pineapple soda.
Very nice.
Yep. Let's go ahead and crack this thing open. Sad thing about this bottle is it's not a twist cap. I have to use a bottle opener.
Oh, man. Yep, that makes me not buy sodas, man. I give up. I give up. I usually just smash the bottle at that point. Talon, you wanna go ahead?
Yes, I am Talon, and I have a nice... Okay, I don't know about you guys. I am an American, and so I only drink American beverages, like good old Mountain Dew SA. So this is a Code Red, Whiteout, and Voltage mix. And I don't plan on sleeping tonight, so...
Alright, so
I never do.
Here's the million-dollar question. Is that thing more healthy or less healthy than the soda you brought last time, which was on the floor for a month?
You mean this soda that...
Oh my god!
Throw that thing away, dude!
I left for camp soon after you guys got here, so I haven't been home a lot recently. Like, I've been home for like a week or so, but I haven't been out to the garage much, and I found that there.
No, he's just been sitting there since the podcast, barely sipping it. He's like, I'm waiting for the next one to finish it. That's probably what he was thinking.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, veterans of the podcast will notice that Tom Peeler, our very own special guest, is not here today. He had to work overtime, unfortunately, but we still have MrViperFang, who's back from vacation, and we also have Talon joining us again. We're going to be talking about some movies, man, because we like movies. Also, sorry about the late start. In fact, a rather late start, the latest start we've had. Everything that could have gone wrong kind of went wrong beforehand on my end, and I had a lot of technical difficulties. It wasn't any of their faults. Actually, it might have been all Talon's fault, but I don't know. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But we're here now, and I'm really excited to talk about movies because it turns out, just like I've kind of became a movie nut a bit over the last couple of years. I just watched all the movies. Suddenly I was like, wait, I actually really like movies. So I like talking about them too, and I feel like I have some interesting points to bring out for some certain movies. Because this podcast is a little bit late, we were kind of rushing to get it started. I didn't debrief anyone about any rules and stuff, so I don't even know what we're going to start with or how formatted this is going to be, but we wanted to just get going because it's already 10:30 Pacific time. In fact, we're all Pacific time here, I think. Tom's not here, so
Nice.
At least we're not making Tom stay up late drinking soda like we usually do.
Oh, yeah.
So
His work is doing that for him.
Yeah, that's true. It probably is. I realize I don't have the pop-up out. Okay, so, boy, what movie, where do we even start? Does anyone have any particular topics that interest them? Whether it be movies or genres of movies or whatever. And I should probably put myself on Do Not Disturb on Skype so I don't get notifications. Thank you, MrViperFang, for letting me know that. There we go.
Well, we just came off of the summer season, right?
Okay.
Yeah. The summer's got some pretty big films, right? There's some pretty big blockbusters. There was some indie stuff, but summer's a pretty okay time for movies, right? Like, you got a lot of big budget stuff. So, what was your guys' favorite movie of the summer?
From what I've been hearing about, from what I heard and from the video that Tim put out for Sycamore Street Studios, I'm liking how Wonder Woman turned out, actually.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say Tim?
Tom, sorry.
Yeah, Tom. Okay.
One vowel.
Yeah, I saw that review and it looked like the like just the opposite of his review of Pirates of the Caribbean 5 or something, which I believe he gave it 1 star. He was very unhappy about that one. But he seemed to really like Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Every single Pirates movie that's come out after the first has gotten progressively crappier.
Steps down. Just a bunch of steps down. Johnny Depp's being paid a lot of money to stick with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you want to go over just some of the points that you liked about Wonder Woman? I personally didn't see it. I actually don't think I saw any new movies this year.
I haven't really seen any new movies this year either.
Oh, okay. You're just going after what Tom said?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going after what a lot of people have been saying. It's also apparently the highest-grossing superhero origin film.
Yeah.
Now.
Oh, wow.
It beat out Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. I think it came off actually also at a good time because like they're not really doing a whole lot of origin films right now because they already have everything set up, and it's also Wonder Woman. People have been excited for that. So
yeah,
I didn't see it either, but I did know someone who actually got to go to a pre-screening of that. So some of the CGI scenes were all still penciled in and that sort of thing and storyboarded.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah. And they loved it, and they were really worried if a lot of that would change going into the actual movie. And then they saw the actual movie, and they actually liked it. So I never got a chance to see it. But do you guys know what movie I did see?
What? Hit us.
We're sticking on that
superhero
timeline.
Okay.
I'm
a little bit worried.
Spider-Man Homecoming?
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought you were going to troll us and say the Emoji Movie or something like that.
I did see the Emoji Movie.
Did you?
You're feeding into the problem.
I was with a bunch of friends. I ran into an old friend I haven't seen in like a year or so. And we, spur of the moment, went and got Del Taco. And that led to the Emoji Movie because he was like, yeah, I really wanted to see it, but none of my friends would go see it with me. So me and a couple of friends went and saw the Emoji Movie. And it wasn't terrible.
Really?
It was pretty bad, but it wasn't garbage. Does that make sense? Like,
bold claim.
It was at the top. It was at the top of the garbage, not at the bottom.
Well, like, okay, what's its target audience? It's kids, right? It's children. Like, it's a kids movie. So yeah, it wasn't like super in depth. It wasn't super crazy, but like the animation wasn't terrible.
Yeah, I did hear that.
It felt like a little like forced, I guess, because it's a very topical thing, and like even the soundtrack felt like it was out of touch because it was all like real pop stuff from like a year ago. But it held. I think it held up fine. Like for its target audience, the kids in the audience loved it, and so I saw trailers during that for much worse movies where the animation was terrible, the jokes just weren't funny.
Okay, that's a good point.
The Emoji Movie wasn't perfect, but like I didn't hate watching it.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up a movie of reference real quick. There's this movie called Open Season, and that's not actually what I want to talk about. It was a sequel to Open Season, and I watched it just because I was around younger people and they were watching it, and it was probably one of the worst movies I ever saw. And just kind of what you were saying about animation stuff, the animation of this movie was the worst thing. Like, it looked like a YouTuber made it. Like, it looked like if a YouTuber, not even like the best YouTube animators, like just one of the lower tier ones made it for a school project or something where he didn't have time to work on it because he just wanted to, get it in the time. It was one of the worst films I ever saw. And the thing is like, it's kind of like what you were saying though. The kids who I was watching it with really enjoyed it. So it was like, it was aimed towards kids. But I still feel like that's not always a great excuse for a movie not being good.
No, not
it's
really.
not. But in my opinion, there's a difference between a bad movie and like an all right movie. The Emoji Movie is all right. Like, it's not going to go down in history as some great cinematic masterpiece, but I also don't think it deserves a lot of the hate that it's been getting. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it's such a topical thing. It's a pretty silly concept, like emojis. Emojis are pretty dumb. Like, not a whole lot of people like them, especially if you're older than 12 or 13. But the movie itself, like I said, the animation was good. It was still a fun watch, and I was surprised that it wasn't complete garbage.
So I haven't seen it, but some of the complaints I've heard, some of the bigger complaints, seem to kind of tend to be like around the plot line and the forced advertisement. And there might have been a couple of things. I think just characters in general. Do you have any input on that?
As far as plot goes, they had to develop a plot around emojis. So
yeah, how do you do that?
it was if you guys don't know, there's Textopolis, right? And this is where all the emojis stay. And if you're an emoji, you make a certain face, and you can only ever make that face because it's like your job, it's like what you do, it's who you are, right? And so some of the names were terrible. Like the main antagonist was named Smiler, but she always had to smile.
Boy.
Oh yeah, she always had to smile. And our protagonist, he's a meh face, right? So he's supposed to be really indifferent about a lot of things, but he also
how I am right now.
Exactly. But he also loves being in Textopolis, and like he has a lot of emotions. And so he is like the only emoji that can make other emoji faces. Like he can do them all basically. And of course that gets him into trouble, and then of course later on it saves the day and that sort of thing. But that's the basic premise, which yeah, it's a little weird, but if you just kind of go along with it, it's not terrible. The advertisements, there was a lot of opportunities for product placement because the entire thing takes place on a phone, so there's a lot of apps and that sort of thing.
Right.
It rarely ever felt shoved down your throat at all.
Really?
Like it's definitely there, but like I don't know if you've looked at your phone recently. There's a lot of product placement on your phone. Like I mean, they visit the YouTube app, they visit Spotify, Candy Crush, a couple games, but like a lot of those are like really big names that you would consider with your phone.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that felt the most forced was Just Dance.
Yeah.
Just because I had no idea that was an app, but that was still a pretty cool scene, except for the emoji pop, which is terrible. But anyways.
Well, okay.
And then they also had Dropbox as their way to the cloud.
Yeah.
Which felt a little weird, just because like
emojis have nothing to do with Dropbox.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because like they need to get to the cloud, and like I like Dropbox, but like kids are gonna know what YouTube is, they're gonna know what Spotify is. I don't know if there's any 11-year-old kids who can app and Dropbox, and if they are, they're few and far between.
Well, even then,
they might
Google
just
Drive
be getting
Master Race.
introduced to it.
Yeah, characters were. I mean, they were one-dimensional, but it didn't feel super one-dimensional. I mean, like I said, it's an anime kids film, and so their characters, they were archetypes. I enjoyed the voice acting. I thought it was fun. There were some things that I genuinely enjoyed about it, and there was other things that were just kind of whatever. But all in all, I don't think it deserves the crap that it's been getting. I will defend the Emoji Movie as all right. I would give it a 5 out of 10.
Just
Okay,
average.
so real quick, what is that compared to a 10 out of 10 that you would give? Like, what movie do you give a 10 out of 10?
Baby
Max.
Driver, Mad Max.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say Baby Boss or whatever.
Baby Boss,
I was like,
Baby
whoa.
No,
I would prefer Boss Baby over this movie.
yeah, I probably yes, but yeah, I mean, like this summer, Baby Driver probably ranks the highest for me. It kind of entered my lexicon as one of my favorite movies. I was a huge fan of Birdman. There's a couple of indie films. One called Frank, which is about a guy. It's on Netflix. It's fantastic. Michael Fassbender is in it. He's the lead. It's about a guy who he's in a band, and he always wears this like giant head thing, like this giant fake head. And you kind of follow this keyboardist who kind of gets sucked into the world of that band, and it's a very, very weird movie to describe.
Okay,
but it's actually good.
I couldn't even picture what you were saying. Is it a cartoon?
No, it's live action. No. It's called Frank. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
It's a hard movie to describe, but it is fantastic. And then Sing Street, other movie that I really, really enjoyed.
I'm
sorry. I
sorry.
think I'm a little bit more.
Your call cut out. Did you say Sing?
No, Sing. Yes, Sing Street. SINGSCR.
Oh, Sing Street. Okay, I thought you were talking about the animated movie Sing that came out relatively recently that also kind of tanked some reviews. Okay.
Yeah, I also like that one, but I was also really biased because it took place in a theater. I love film. I'm a film major, a theater major, for those who don't know. So I love this. I have a lot of opinions on this kind of stuff, but I think it's also important to remember things place. Like, not everyone's trying to make Ibsen. Not everyone's trying to make these massive, in-depth things, you know? Sometimes they're fun. And yeah, sometimes they're better than other times. I mean, you look at Pixar, which can pretty continuously pump out stuff that is absolutely fantastic, whether you're 2 years old or whether you're 60 years old. And other companies like Sony Entertainment just likes to crank out, you know, animated stuff, but I think their animation is superb. I think they know their
Yeah.
audience and they can make it well. It's a similar thing with the Marvel movies. Some people complain that they are, really cooker cutty, really formulaic, and they can be, but they also work. And so you just kind of have to take them for what they are and enjoy it through those lenses. So critically, saying Emoji Movie, yeah, not that great, but if you're just hanging out with friends, A+ movies.
Now, do you think it was a lot of fun to watch because you were with your friends, or do you think it was because the movie making it fun for you and your friends?
It was definitely more fun because I was with my friends. Like, we were able to make fun of the really stupid stuff, but I still thoroughly did enjoy the movie.
Okay. Because
I don't
I
if
know,
they
like,
enjoyed it, but
if me and my friends went to any movie, I'm pretty sure we would enjoy it, but that's just because of the company of the friends, and I feel like sometimes it's a little bit hard to differentiate between whether the movie's making it fun or just hanging out with your friends are.
Right.
Like, do you think
Yeah.
you would have gotten the same enjoyment by maybe sitting with them watching fireworks or something like that?
no, because fireworks are really slow. I don't know if you've ever seen fireworks. There's no plot development at all.
Yeah, I've
But,
never seen fireworks, man. It's been
no,
my
I-
lifelong dream.
I think that yes, it was more fun because I saw it with friends, but I stand by. I think that it was. I went in expecting just for it to be a terrible movie, for me to trash it. I mean, I remember the first movie that I saw that I thought was really genuinely utterly terrible was Jack and Jill, and that was
Oh, yeah.
groundbreaking because I was like, what, a movie can be bad? But I left the theater of the Emoji Movie going, wow, why are people crapping on this so much? Because like, it's not good. It's not genius cinematic masterpiece, whatever. But I think people hate it just because of the topic and not
Yeah.
without really giving
Yeah,
it a chance.
no, and
It's
I
been
get
getting
that too.
snapped since the beginning.
And right, exactly. Like as soon as that first trailer out, it did get a lot of bad press. Like before it was even coming out, just because people thought the idea was so stupid. So I can understand, like Rotten Tomatoes giving it 0 at first. Well, I can understand if that's a little bit of an overstatement, just because this thing has been built up for so long now. So it's understandable if the reviews are a little bit worse than they need to be, just because it's kind of like, oh, let's score some easy points by hitting on the Emoji Movie or whatever. Real quick to respond to Real Stunt Panda, why has nobody made an irredeemable movie? Care to elaborate on that? Have you seen fireworks? Well, yeah, fireworks are okay to see live, but who wants to watch a video of them? I wasn't really referring to watching a video, I was kind of referring to watching them live, but I'm sure watching a video of them would still be better than not seeing them all at all, like I have.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I've seen fireworks. So one thing that you said that kind of interested me is it was saying watching the movie over like kind of like these tinted glasses and stuff. Do you mean like watching it knowing who the demographic is for or whatever, or like watching it knowing that it's not going to be perfect, or?
I think a little bit of both. I mean,
Okay.
movies aren't going to be perfect. Even some really great movies have some faults and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But also, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. If you go into a theater and you want to watch some really intense period piece, right, like Shakespeare in Love or like Passion of the Christ, or like there's these kind of films that are meant to be really dramatic, really intense, really hard going, and you're going to look at those through a lot different lens than you're going to look
Okay.
at a kids movie
I see
and
what
that sort of
you're saying,
thing.
Okay.
It's just kind of you can't look at a kids movie and be like, oh, the characters are very one dimensional and the plot was very basic. It's like, yeah, it's because it's for kids who have like never heard any stories before, so they're going into this and it might be the same movie that was made 10 years ago, but these guys
Right.
haven't seen that, and this is taking that story and applying it to in a language that they will understand and adding its own twist to it. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but I sincerely believe that 10 15 years from now there'll be some kid who saw it whenever he was here and he'll watch it and he'll genuinely enjoy it, because partly of nostalgia, but also because it isn't an absolutely terrible movie.
Okay. I got you.
That's my defense of the Emoji Movie.
All right, so my issue with the Emoji Movie, which gives me
have you seen it?
kind of a seething hatred for it, we could have had a Popeye movie, but instead they decided to go with the Emoji Movie instead.
Is
Can
that
I
the
ask you a
story?
question? Why would you want to see a Popeye movie?
Because that sounds a lot better than an Emoji Movie.
Okay, cool, but why?
Because I genuinely enjoyed Popeye when I was a kid.
Okay, so you have that nostalgia factor to it, right?
And it was, let's see, director for it was going to be Gendy Tartakovsky. And they decided to go with something that's less than Popeye in my eyes.
So what you're saying is that like the idea of a premise of emoji which has no like story arcs or anything like that and just one side of emotions, you're saying that's less appealing than like Popeye, which actually has a bit of structure and stuff. Like you're saying the premise alone is good enough, or is better than the emoji premise.
I also saw the sneak peek that they put up on YouTube 3 years ago.
I feel like I saw that.
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Did that? So I didn't realize that was the story. Like I feel like I saw that a while ago. But anyway, yeah. What were you saying,
I'm pretty damn sure that's what happened. They canned Popeye and instead greenlit what was going to be the Emoji Movie.
You are okay. So we're talking Sony Animation, correct?
Yeah, Sony Animation.
Here's my two thoughts. One, Sony Animation's track record as far as like really awesome critical successes go isn't that great. My theory is that they would have done Popeye. It wouldn't have been the best that Popeye could be, and you would be disappointed and complaining right now.
That's a fair point. That's a fair
point.
Second
It would have.
thing,
No, I would have. I'm pretty sure I would have liked it a lot.
regardless of how good it was, because you can look at the Smurfs and you could say, yeah, the Smurfs are some old thing that has structure, but that movie didn't go over well. Second thing, we complain a lot as a society about reboots, about sequels, about that kind of thing. The Emoji Movie, even though it might have been terrible, was still a movie that did something new, and that's adding to that. And yeah, there's going to be an Emoji Movie too, because the thing did great at the box office, and this might be a thing later. There might be an Emoji reboot in 30 years for all we know, but it is still doing something new, and it's establishing that. If they had made the Popeye movie, yeah, it would have been cool. There would have been a strong nostalgia factor to that, but I don't think they would have done it as well, and we would have just complained about another reboot of an old thing like we see so often in every medium.
Now, that also brings up another point. Since the Popeye movie wasn't made, maybe that gives other creators a better chance at making a better Popeye movie. Because if they went through with the Popeye movie, they would have owned the rights and stuff like that. And if it never got a sequel, But because they didn't, maybe someone else will step up and also make a good one. But also what you were saying about the... oh gosh, what was it? You were talking about the Emoji Movie. You're saying how it's kind of like new, right? Because you're saying like it's a new IP, whatnot. This is not like reboot or sequel or whatever. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's one thing I want to ask you. How new is it? Like, does it feel like it's copying kind of similar trends that you see a lot these days? Like, as far as humor goes, or plot lines, or whatnot, or morals. Like, how unique did it feel? Because I heard it's not extremely unique, but I didn't see it.
It's not, but it's also a kids movie. Like, if you want to get down to it, no story is unique if you really want to go down that road, because I mean, the stuff that we look at as geniuses, even as far back as like Shakespeare and that sort of thing, he just stole most of his stuff from the ancient Greek and that sort of thing, and remodeled it, repurposed it for his things. And that's what we've been doing forever, because there's only like two stories that you can do, and with every single movie or podcast or musical or play or anything, it's just been a variation of those stories. I think what the Emoji Movie does is it brings that same story that we've seen, someone who doesn't feel like they fit in, someone who goes on a journey, someone who comes back fitting in and being the hero, even kind of the love things, and puts a more modern twist on it. A lot of the jokes were very visual or very topical, like they go into YouTube and they're watching like a bunch of memes or a bunch of this. Like my favorite part of the movie, that little video of the cat, like they're scratching the cat's tummy and they go quah, and then the cat goes quah.
Yeah.
Do you know that one? Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's a great video. The big menacing like virus robots that have been hunting down and like killing all the viruses, and they're looking for our hero, get lured into the YouTube room. They put on that YouTube clip, and it just shows like these big menacing robots raising up their hands every time the cat does, and it's adorable and it's great. And it might not be high humor, it might not be incredibly original. It's like using other videos and that sort of thing, but it kind of puts things in that spin. There's a lot of topical stuff. There's a lot of jokes with the different apps or kind of with the different universe that I think kind of redeem it, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a lot
Okay.
of product placement. Yeah, there's a lot of this, but it's not like they're just showing, they're just sending
Right.
that out there.
Well-
They're utilizing that well, in my opinion.
And it has, I mean, box offices have standards, and when you're a company like, Sony Animation or whatever it's called, you're going to be held up to certain standards, as in you can't just make the worst animated film you ever can, which you see those every once in a while in cheap, DVD cases or whatever.
There
And-
was a trailer for a very bad animated film where the animation was terrible.
Yeah.
The jokes that they did, I mean, just dead in the
Right.
entire room. Like you can tell.
Right, so it's like they're still meeting the standard, which is good, and I do think it's a shame that the movie's getting hated on quite a bit for the animators, because the animators definitely did a really good job. Because standard is a really good job when it comes to animation. I mean, even if like I don't know what a like top notch animation film was for its time, but like even just standard is still really hard and takes so much time and really talented people to make. And that's the kind of the hard part about animation. It's just to get the standard, you need to work so hard and you need really talented people. So I feel like it is a shame that for bad movies that have really good, or not even really good, but just standard animation, those animators are not going to get as much credit as they deserve. Also, to quickly respond to Real Stunt Panda, Irredeemable is a comic book series by Mark Waid where he is a Superman character, is realistic and crazy. He just starts killing whole cities full of people. Now, I'm not sure who did you say it was a DC comic? I don't think he said. Yeah, I'm not sure if Marvel would pick something up that. Or you know what? They could just go with a Deadpool's spin and just say rated R or whatever, just killing full cities and stuff.
My guess is that's also probably independent. Like, you got Dark Horse, you got Image. There's a lot of good independent comics out there, so check those out. If you want my comic recommendation real quick, 7 to Eternity, it's fantastic. But
there you go. I also got another recommendation just after you were talking about how like everything is kind of being remade off of other stuff. There's this one, I can't remember who made it, but there's this one really good video I found on YouTube. It's called Everything is a Remix. I don't remember who it was, but if you guys search that, there's like a really well done video just explaining why people reuse things from other people and how it's important to growing mediums and stuff like that, and how everything actually is a remix and stuff.
It's remix, especially because there's a lot of debate in that. I mean, you can look at art, you can look at stories, but people are a little bit more lenient on that. But whenever you get to music and you get into sampling and all that kind of stuff, then it really gets into, is it theft, is it art? Right. So it's cool if you ever want to look into that kind of concept, look into the music world of that.
Well, and it wasn't specifying the music world; it just used remix as a broad category. Yeah. But anyway, well, that's interesting. You guys heard it here. Talon is vouching a little bit for the Emoji Movie, not a ton, but
it's all right.
he says it's all right. I haven't seen it personally. MrViperFang doesn't sound like a fan. No. Though we probably shouldn't. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna close the topic. So go ahead.
One more thing about the director for that Popeye movie that got canceled. He was also the director for the premiere Samurai Jack movie.
Nice.
Yeah. So I have no doubt in my mind he would have made a good Popeye movie. There's also the fact that the animation from the sneak peek looks a hell of a lot better than anything that the Emoji Movie is showing.
Well, again, I think I have two things on that. One, they're trying to animate emojis. That's not a whole great, like...
Yeah, exactly! Compared to that, it's absolute shit!
It is a different world that they're trying to do. It's a different color scheme. I feel like they captured the world of emojis.
Popeye got canceled, I am never going to like the Emoji Movie remotely near the amount you are.
Well, that's...
Okay, we're done.
I do want to quickly say, though, that a good director doesn't always mean a good movie. One example you could look at is The Hobbit, which had Peter Jackson, which obviously did the first 3 Lord of the Rings movies, which were outstanding. But because of the company that was working with it, who rushed him, and he said through in an interview that most of the movie he was just winging it because there were so many problems going on outside that he couldn't work with. So I feel like it's not really fair to say that it would be good just because it... But to each their own. If you really like Popeye, then you might just really like any Popeye movie that comes out. But Talon, I believe you were about to talk about a movie before you brought up the Emoji Movie, because that was originally a troll. What were you talking about earlier? A movie you like?
Spider-Man and Homecoming was absolutely fantastic. As far as that kind of Marvel superhero thing goes, I think my favorite movie of the summer Baby Driver, hands down. If you guys have not seen that, definitely go and see
I've heard
that.
so many good things about that one. I still haven't seen it. New movies are tough. It's hard to make time for theaters and pay money and stuff like that. So I usually catch it when it comes out, either on Netflix or if I pick it up in the store, which doesn't happen very often. But I've heard so many good things about Baby Driver. I would certainly like to watch it sometime.
It is one of the best films I've ever seen. I mean, just straight up. We talk a lot about recycling, about reusing, that kind of thing. It plot-wise, it might steal a few things from other things like things do, but cinematically, concept-wise, it is entirely different. I mean, it is a heist musical car chase movie. I was listening to a podcast with the director. It's a Edgar Wright episode of Comedy Bang Bang, and they talked a lot about kind of the making of it, and they actually had their editor on set throughout the entire thing so that he could throw up quick edits just to make sure that they had everything timed right, because it's a very musical film, a lot of it's set to music, so they storyboarded the entire thing, went and shot it, and then would have the editor on set so that they could make sure that it wasn't, a waste of time and that sort of thing. And it shows. It is absolutely fantastic.
Okay. Now, a movie that came out maybe 1 year ago, what was it? It was it was another kind of crazy drive-in movie. Like, it was what was it called? Dang it! It was part of a series, I think, Mad Max or something, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How would you say it compares to Mad Max? Because I've heard it's kind of similar, but also has like its own spin, like with you're saying, the musical thing, right?
So, I had my first experience with Mad Max Fury Road this summer, and I came in right as the beginning title showed up, so I kind of missed the first part, and then I was kind of busy during, so it was kind of a half watch. But I also know that Mad Max was. Let me backtrack. It's an action film. It's great. It is absolutely gorgeous, and the cinematography is amazing. The plot, in my opinion, for Mad Max is much more narrow. I mean, the entire thing takes place on one kind of drive, right? They get the girls. They're trying to free the girls. They go to a place. They find out the place doesn't exist. Spoiler alert. And then they kind of come back, right?
I saw that one in theaters, and I thought it was amazing.
Exactly. And it swept up at the Oscars because it is a good film. It is a good example of a film that doesn't need a crazy strong plot because it focuses on world building. There's some really great characters in there, and it is absolutely gorgeous to watch. Baby Driver. Oh, go for it.
It's also hilarious because there were people that were boycotting it because the female lead got more attention than Mad Max, and that's probably the most ridiculous thing that you can boycott something for.
Yeah, there's always going to be someone like that.
Just let creators do what they want.
Yeah.
And are you saying you kind of preferred Baby Driver though?
I would rather prefer Baby Driver,
Okay.
but I see where people are drawing the similarities. For me, Baby Driver is a little bit more three-dimensional with the plot itself. There's a lot of really cool action stuff happening, but it also is really driven by this intense plot, and there's some really crazy moments kind of within that. It's also just a very different film, right? Mad Max is very serious. And yeah, there's some comedic parts here and there, but it's largely a very serious film, and the lead character is very serious. Baby Driver, you're pulling. Oh yeah. I mean, it's Edgar Wright, and he is a master. He always has been very great at visual jokes, and he really pushes the medium visually, what you can do with a film and with comedic jokes, as well as he's an amazing writer.
Right.
And then it was cool to watch Baby Driver, where he was able to push that sonically. And really, really integrate the music into the funny parts, into the intense part. I mean, it is a very, very musically charged film.
Okay.
Excuse me. And he does excellent with the visuals. He is excellent with the characters, as well as the music and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, there you go. You got another recommendation. That's another movie we kind of started talking about while Talon was still trying to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. You got a sales pitch for that one too, or do you want to go to another movie before you do that?
I loved Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought it was fantastic. I have always been a huge fan of Michael Keaton, and so I was super excited to hear that he was in that. I love Donald Glover. I was excited to hear that he was in that as well. and it totally lived up. It was one of my favorite Marvel movies. It perfectly bridges the gap, in my opinion, of kind of like a high school movie. Like the pretty girl, nerdy kid kind of dynamic, that you get in a lot of films.
I mean,
while
in
also
Spider-Man movies specifically.
Exactly, yeah. Also being a superhero movie and with having Tony Stark, and some of the set pieces were absolutely fantastic. If you saw in the trailers where he's like holding the two pieces of the barge together, that was one of my favorite scenes. And I saw it twice over the course of the summer because a bunch of friends wanted to see it, and I was shocked at how well it held up, and how, even knowing the plot twist, even knowing kind of these incredible scenes, I was still on the edge of my seat. It was very good.
All right. Quick note to the chat. I am reading your messages. I just don't want to respond to them immediately just because I don't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation or anything. But just rest assured, I am reading them. Also, so Talon, you're saying that this one, you're saying it's a little bit different than what you're used to because of like the kind of younger feel, right? Like the more high school scenario and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. It very much feels like it's in the same world, as I've mentioned. That's been a goal that Marvel has had from the beginning. But it does a very good job of finding its own. And I think a large part of that is because the lead character is so young and because he's so different than everyone else. I mean, he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You come into Iron Man and he's some big-time dealer. Captain America is, frozen in ice and then comes back. The Hulk. Thor is a god. And then you kind of come to Spider-Man who,
just a guy.
Yeah, and whenever he was introduced in Civil War, he had his powers, right? So the studio went, hey, people know who Spider-Man is, let's jump right into it. Mm-hmm. And so you're able to get him post-Civil War, which is really cool. So he's kind of already established as a character in the MCU and as Spider-Man, so you don't need the whole origin story in the first half. But he starts off and he's returning people's stolen bikes, he's stopping car thieves. It's all very basic stuff, kind of the stuff that people fell in love with Spider-Man with in the beginning. And then you get to see him kind of toy in these larger things, and it leads for a really great character arc. Opposed to someone who's discovering his powers, we get to jump right into what to do with those powers. Okay.
Well, now, would you say, you were talking about how like the characters already kind of built up in the Marvel universe and stuff. Would you say that like, would you say if you didn't have any experience in the Marvel universe, would you say it's a little bit hard to follow along? Like, no? Because I feel like when I see some Marvel movies, even though I have experience in the Marvel universe, I imagine if I came into this like head on, I feel like none of these characters would have enough character development and stuff. Specifically Avengers, and I know that's kind of a tricky one because that one is completely built around the Marvel universe. But sometimes I get that kind of feeling with some of the Marvel movies, and I didn't know if that was apparent in this one.
Marvel movies are interesting because if you haven't seen them all, you don't know what you don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know someone who is very confused by Civil War because she didn't know if the have you guys seen Civil War?
I've seen a little bit of it.
Okay, you guys watch that. It's on Netflix. It is really good. And you don't really need to know the rest of the characters because they introduce a lot of characters and they do a pretty good job of setting them up. And if they don't, it's whatever because they're just a big superhero who's going to punch them in the face. But it starts off with a flashback and it involves, Bucky, the Winter Soldier, and that sort of thing. So if you recognize him or if you think that flashback happened in another film, I could see where that would be confusing. But if you've seen them all, then oh no, this is new information. So I think if you just kind of go in, if you kind of have to try and open mind, that's one of the things that I love about the Marvel Universe, and one of the things I feel like they do really well, is you can jump in at any movie and pretty much get what's going on, because they do a pretty good job of, even though it's tied into this huge big thing, making it self-contained. And yeah, if you go to see Spider-Man Homecoming and you haven't seen anything else, you might be confused by a couple lines here and there whenever they mention like, oh, Vision this or Thor that.
Or Tony Stark's like relationship with him and stuff like that.
Right, but even the beginning of that film, they set it up.
It's really well addressed.
Yeah, like the entire first half of the film. So if you go and see Civil War, you're able to see Spider-Man introduced and that sort of thing. And then the very first 5 or 10 minutes of Homecoming is you seeing that same event through his eyes. So you get to see like kind of, you know, him being picked up by Tony Stark, him, you know, getting ready for the battle, him finding his suit, like just kind of all those moments, as well as some of the aftermath before the film even really gets started, is like, hey, Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay.
So yeah, so you can go and see it, and there might be a couple lines that you miss, but overall the plot you should be able to understand just fine, as long as you know that, you know, it's not trying to set up anything too crazy. It's not, there's no big plot twist involved with other films. It's pretty self-contained. You got to kind of go into it like that, and you'll be fine. So
okay.
Another Marvel movie that does that to a little more degree in terms of being self-contained is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
You don't need to see, you really don't need to see any of the other Marvel movies to be able to get right into it.
Exactly.
Because it just focuses on those characters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always had a kind of a soft spot in my heart for the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because it was kind of nice to see the superhero approach of a movie that's not taking itself seriously, because it kind of feels like when a lot of with a lot of superhero the superhero genre in general is not really up my alley. I don't think there's too much wrong with it. It's not something I'm extremely interested in. And I think that's a big part of that is just kind of mixing the superhero world with the real world. I feel like it's really hard to find that balance between believable and unbelievable, and to put them together, you know. But that's what I kind of liked about Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, oh, they know like all this cheesy stuff going on. They understand that this is kind of a more comical world and stuff, and I kind of liked that. But
you'd really like Spider-Man Homecoming then.
Well, I also don't really like high school dramas, so I don't know. Is there a lot of that in it? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
But it's also just like the fun. I would suggest that you go and see it, because the high school drama parts remind me more of like Diary of a Wimpy Kid than anything else, where it's just kind of like this kind of dorky guy who's kind of trying to go and navigate, but it's also tied in a lot with the superheroes. It feels like it brings out the both and best, and the funny parts are also really funny in Homecoming. I think it's, I mean, aside from maybe the first Guardians of the Galaxy, one of the funniest superhero movies out there. So
okay. Now, one of the things, I know you said this one's like kind of a little bit different than other Marvel movies and stuff, but one of the things I kind of have a problem with superhero movies is how similar they kind of seem. Maybe it's because I'm not looking too in depth into them, and I'm just watching them as a casual viewer, and they just kind of start looking more and more similar to me. And I know one thing I hear about most Marvel movies that come out, like the last couple ones that come out, I've heard often is this one's different. For an example, Guardians of the Galaxy came out. It's like, this one's different, and that one I think was different. But then they had like Doctor Strange, and like, okay, this one's different. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they had Civil War, like, oh, by the way, this one's like different. You know, it's a different kind of movie. And then Spider-Man: Homecoming, they've been saying the same thing. How different do you think it is? Like, on a scale of the different Marvel movies to not different Marvel movies, do you think it's like, I don't know. What's your input on that?
So, I do think Marvel has been getting better at making their films more distinguishable. You look at like the Phase 1 stuff, even some of the Phase 2 stuff, right? All the Iron Man movies, all the Thor movies, all of those movies, Captain America, they can all kind of blend, right?
Right.
And now that they've kind of have that archetype set up, they can start to branch out a little bit. So I do believe, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, is the most different. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I hope that it keeps that. I just saw where the next Guardians movie is going to be setting up the next, like,
10 to 20 years of Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. And they've been kind of playing that up a little bit, where like the Avengers, they kind of start feeling old. They're kind of starting to maybe phase out a little bit. And especially after Infinity War, where like the Guardians and the MCU kind of really clash heads, and the Infinity Stones and all that kind of stuff. After that, then Guardians are going to kind of set the precedent. So I hope that the Guardians maintain their uniqueness kind of throughout. But I believe Guardians of the Galaxy is the most unique. And then after that, they do find their own. Doctor Strange, in some aspects, feels very much like a superhero movie, right? It's an origin movie, so you spend the first bit setting that up. You know, the villain, some of the dialogue, some of the fight scenes maybe, but what Doctor Strange really has going for it is its visuals, right? This otherworldly kind of stuff, the way they can bend reality, and that was gorgeous. And I think you're looking for that, it can really help add to it and really help it stand
Right.
out. Civil War was incredibly complex. There's like 30,000 characters. Almost all of them, I mean, I can't think of one that didn't feel well set up. They all have their own motivations. They all seem to be doing well, kind of in this gigantic conflict and war. So I personally love Civil War, and it does feel different because of its ambition. Even if, since it's an Avengers movie and it kind of combines them all, it might look more the same. But if you kind
Okay.
of watch it, it kind of feels different, just because the superheroes are fighting. There's two different sides, and they both have
Right.
their own pros and cons. It's a very three-dimensional movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
Spider-Man goes almost in the opposite direction with that, where it kind of tones it down, where instead of this big, grandiose war among superheroes,
Yeah, like one really
it's-
small person.
yeah, it's one small person.
Yeah.
He's still in high school. Like, one of the character arcs we see is him decide whether he leaves high school and, like, kind of joins the Avengers and does that and really makes, superheroing his full-time job, or if he stays in high school, goes to college, like, he knows Tony Stark so he can get into great colleges. But does he do that boring route, or does he do the exciting superhero route? There's also, like, he's a high school, I think he's like a sophomore or junior in high school, and, like, he likes a girl, so there's that whole thing. And then, like, even the villain he's trying to face, Michael
Right.
Keaton, yeah, he's got these super alien technology, so it's, like, kind of big, but it's not like some huge,
Right.
like, world-ending thing. It's still just an arms dealer, basically.
Okay.
And it still makes it feel incredibly important because the character arc, in my opinion,
Right.
is so great amongst those several different things that we see him go throughout the movie.
Okay, and you really like this in Spider-Man: Homecoming? Would you say like more than some of the past Marvel movies, or like?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do you think the reason you like it more is because it's a little bit more focused, because they've kind of been a little bit heavy hitting with the past ones? Is that what you're saying?
I have always been a fan of Spider-Man, so he's always going to hold a soft place in my heart
Yeah.
for that. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
But I also believe that it is a genuinely good movie, and it feels very different than a lot of the Marvel films I've seen before, and I appreciate that.
That's good.
I enjoy it. I mean, he's an underdog. What's
Mhm.
not to love,
Now,
I kind of feel the same way about Batman, but given the track record of the movies that have come out,
Yeah, I feel very
I think-
blessed to.
I think
have a
I'll stick-
superhero like-
I think I'll stick to some of the Arkham Asylum games.
yeah. Well, from what I think how Tom put it, like the last good Batman movie in, he said a certain amount of years. He's a movie guy. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He knows the year. But I don't know. But basically, he was saying that the Lego Batman movie was the best Batman movie in like several. And I fully believe that if I were to see it. I haven't seen it yet, but like it sounds like it's pretty darn good. It's a shame because I genuinely liked Dark Knight.
like
Dark Knight. I thought that was
I-
and I heard good things about Batman Begins too. So it felt like they were on the right track. But then I heard a lot of mixed things about the next one.
Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I've heard a
Or
lot of
Dark
mixed
Knight
things about that.
Rises, I think.
So
Let me
it's
look it
kind of
up.
set now. Now DC is having a hard time standing up because they got the bad superhero or Superman track record, and now
Dark Knight Rises.
and now the Batman
Yeah.
versus Superman and stuff. But maybe Wonder Woman will help them out. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the first Marvel movie okay, so a while back, Iron Man came out. I remember really liking it as when I was younger. Recently, I noticed though it was on Amazon Prime Video, so I watched it again, and I was pleasantly surprised by how well it still held up. I think what I really liked about Iron Man, and this is what I would hope to see in more Marvel movies, is it's just kind of like what I was saying earlier, just mixing the unbelievable with the believable a little bit better. I felt like Iron Man
Yeah.
did that very, very well because while like all that superhero stuff, it felt like none of it was granted. He was like trying to develop all these machines and stuff. Everything kept going wrong, and it felt like there was a big passage of time, and there was a lot of real world events happening. Like they're like, all right, you own this weapon place, you got to make some weapons, but you decide not to make weapons. There was the the terrorism aspects, which was really straining on him, and
Yeah.
it felt like a really good mixture of superhero and real world. And in fact, like the actual superhero scenes, there was only like 3 of them because it was so entertaining just seeing him trying to get there. And I feel like one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way with some of the other movies, like Captain America, it kind of just feels like, oh, he was injected and he's a superhero throughout the whole movie, and it makes you focus less on real life problems and more on only superhero problems, like the only things that can really stop this guy. And I feel like I've seen that trend in a lot of movies, and that's what I just really liked about Iron Man, is that it was just a man with a suit who had so many real life problems. And when it came down to it, even when he had his suit, he was a vulnerable guy. I mean, the movie's really old. I don't mind spoiling it, really. But
I've seen it a lot.
The main villain, who a lot of people don't like, I personally really like the main villain. I thought he was terrifying. I thought the actor was great. I just thought it was a little weird seeing the old man in a suit. But other than that, like, I thought, like, what was his name? Jeff Bridges or something? I thought he did an excellent job. He, like, when I was watched as young, he terrified me when I was young. Like, I thought he made just that moment where he, like, paralyzes Tony Stark and takes his heart out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real life problems. It felt like he's dealing with actual evil villains and stuff that aren't just super overpowered. This is just one man messing with another man, like, and there was nothing really crazy going on. And I think that's what really drew me to Iron Man. I thought it was just a really well crafted movie. I would like to see that a little bit more in more Marvel movies, but I haven't really seen much of it, unfortunately. At least not as much as I'd like.
Go see Spider-Man Homecoming. Let me know what you think, because it feels very balanced between reality and between that. As whenever you talk about terrorists, whenever you talk about weapons, especially in the Iron Man context, it's all very grounded, right? The most outlandish thing that's happening is the suit. But then as you kind of go forward, I mean, even looking at, like, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, which we love, but that's also in space with all these cosmic things. So the rest of the, you know, in this real world that they've set up, they have to deal with kind of these grandiose things that they've done. So, you know, Michael Keaton, he's an arms dealer, but he uses alien technology. So it starts off with him, you know, his construction crew is hired to clean out some of the destruction in Manhattan from the first Avengers movie with all the aliens and stuff. So he has access to this alien technology, and that's kind of how this stuff gets started. And so that feels like the most outlandish thing, is just that. Because aside from that, it's Spider-Man trying to stop this arms dealer while also trying to be there for his decathlon team, while, you know, trying to be there for his Aunt May, trying to get the girl. And there's kind of like, there's like 3 or 4 different real world problems for just the one big thing, and he kind of has to find the balance between that. I think that you would really, really, really enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming. Maybe I'm hyping it up too much, so don't let me do that. But
no, I've known you for a long time, and I understand, like, when you like movies, I kind of understand why you like them. And I can figure out if that makes me like them or not, or same thing.
And
with,
even
like,
hearing your criticisms, like, I feel like they'd be very addressed. Okay,
well, I will actually check that out then, and I will definitely let you know how much I like it. It's not on Netflix, right?
No, it's still in theaters though.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it should still be in theaters.
No, it'll probably be on Netflix pretty soon. I mean, they put so many Marvel movies up there.
Probably like late next month.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll definitely check that out. So recently, if we could kind of transition off the Marvel train, just because we talked about that.
Oh yeah. Man. Okay. Yeah. Go on ahead.
Another kind of big thing that's been happening lately is the return of the Star Wars films. I've got a couple of 2 cents I think I'd like to share on that.
Go for it.
For starters, just as a little background, I was growing up, I was a big fan of the prequels. When I got older, I liked them less. I recently did a Star Wars marathon with a couple of my pals, actually Owlton and Bombastic. There are also other YouTubers you guys can check out because they make pretty good content. We all watched just every Star Wars movie in one day, and we were able to get our full opinions on it and stuff without any nostalgia or whatnot. I think I cannot believe what was going through people's minds during episode 2. I think that was just probably the worst movie I've seen with that big of a budget. But what I mainly want to talk about, like, that's kind of my background. I feel like number 3 had the most potential, but also in a way it's kind of the biggest disappointment because of all the potential it had. Because I still think it's not that great. But, I really like A New Hope, and The Empire Strikes Back is close to my favorite movie of all time. I think it's just everything from the story arcs and the characters, I feel like it all fit together so nicely, and I really love The Empire Strikes Back. Recently, The Force Awakens, not recently, like 2 years ago, The Force Awakens came out. And this is kind of a big deal because this has been the first movie in quite a long time. And last time we had a return to Star Wars, we had something like The Phantom Menace, which a lot of people didn't like. So I feel like one mindset that was kind of going through a lot of people when they first saw The Force Awakens was, we've seen so much worse. It's kind of hard to say it's kind of hard to criticize this one. So I feel like the reviews might be a little bit better than I think they should be. I feel like some people might be the most fair with the criticisms. Overall, I enjoyed the movie, Episode 7, but
Oh yeah, I liked it too.
I was on the same boat. I kind of felt like, how can I really criticize this when I could just criticize Episode 2? Like, we've been through a lot worse. But I think some of the things that kind of stuck with me the more I thought about it, and after watching it over a couple times, I don't watch a lot of movies over again, but when it's a movie like Star Wars, I feel like I have to get my thoughts on it straight and stuff. I'm not a huge fan of using, and I know that I'm not the first one to say this, but how it's kind of like really similar to A New Hope, how they use a lot of the same plot lines and stuff like that, and even the characters mirror characters from A New Hope. And I understand that, like, the J.J. Abrams, who I think was was he the producer or the director?
I think he was the director.
Okay, yeah. So I understand he's in already a tough position. I mean, how can you meet all those expectations? So he's like, okay, I know a lot of people like A New Hope, so I think I'm going to kind of keep it close to that. And I feel like it helped a lot of people because of, well, not helped a lot, but I feel like it was very nostalgic, and I feel like that's why a lot of people liked it. And I can understand, the movie, it's been so long since A New Hope. I can understand why that movie would come out and people would just be like, oh my gosh, this is so nostalgic and stuff. And it was very hype. I've never been so hyped for a movie since that one came out. When I first saw the yellow text going up the screen and the music starting, and I saw it in theaters, and I felt it. It was the most hyped movie I ever saw. And even
midnight release, and
very nice, very nice. I was about to see it earlier, but like I was just waiting for my friend because we wanted to see it together, and we just had to get our schedules straight because we were both so hyped for it. But I feel like it's kind of like, okay, I feel like the best way I can express it is, I feel like A New Hope is kind of like sacred, if you will, in a sense, to where it's really good for what it is and whatnot, and for what it started. And it's just kind of strange seeing the same events happen again. And it's like, I like A New Hope, so why am I not kind of watching A New Hope or something? I don't know. And it felt like it built up a lot of predictable things. This is also another kind of a hard movie to spoil because I know this one's a little bit more recent, but come on, guys, if you care about spoilers, you should have saw the movie already, or you could just turn off the podcast. That's also an option.
Just mute and tab out or something.
Yeah, mute and tab out. Tell you what, I'm gonna raise my hand until the spoilers are done. If you see the hand go down, you could start listening again. So mute whatever. The moment where Han Solo dies, I mean, I didn't see it coming personally. Oh no, wait,
Right.
I saw it coming just because I got spoiled it. But I mean, like, I still didn't see it was when it was coming, like, at the time. Like, I didn't know it was gonna happen right there. But like, if you look back at like a lot of the step ups, a lot of steps to it and stuff, you could really see that, like, because this happened in A New Hope, this is gonna happen again and whatnot. And just like all the parables of Han Solo to Ben and stuff, I basically just I'm gonna put this down. I feel like it just would have been nice to see its own thing, because how often does stuff how often does something recreate itself in an actual universe, right? Like, if you're watching something, how it's a little bit difficult to believe the universe that you are put in by the movie if the same thing's happening that you've already seen, like, several or years ago or whatever. And I feel like that was just a big thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The next big thing, though, this is something that's a little bit less common. I feel like not a lot of people talk about, and this is kind of the big thing that I'm frustrated about, is all the cop-outs in the movie. There was a lot of moments where things just happened to happen, and it played so much significance. Right off the bat, I want to say the moment, another little Star Wars spoiler, but like the moment after the Death Star, not the Death Star, but the giant planet Death Star or whatever, after that blew up, suddenly R2-D2 woke up. Oh, hi there, how are you? And he pulls out this map, like, oh, that's the exact map we've been looking for this whole time. You happen to have it, and you happen to not wake up until the planet thing already blew up, and you're a droid, and we happen to not somehow boot you up or disassemble you or anything in time for the planet to blow up right at the end of the movie. That's great timing right there. You made for an epic climax, you know?
Well, R2-D2 is kind of a dick, as we've seen in the movies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if he was shut down...
if anybody was going to have this... If any character in the entire Star Wars universe was going to have that map, it was going to be R2-D2.
Right, okay. But except for in the movie, they actually said they believe that the Empire has the copy of the map also.
The Empire's dumb. No, R2-D2...
All right, well that's a fair argument, but
yeah.
let me paint a different picture. What if the direction they went was this instead? They all go into that planet place, and I don't even remember what it was called, the Death Star, right? They all go into the Death Star. There's a lot of dramatic things happening. Rey gets rescued. On their way, as they're about to leave, Rey somehow realizes, maybe by looking at a monitor or something on the screen, realizes, wait a second, they have that other map here. Why don't we get it before we leave? And like, I don't know, it's kind of risky. One of us might die. And who knows, it might just end up being Han Solo. But they go for it for the better of the cause. They somehow get the map, but maybe that's what causes Han Solo to die. So it kind of puts more emotion towards the Han Solo and Rey relationship because Rey kind of almost killed him, right? So
yeah,
it's like, I could, and then the planet explodes, they barely get out, and then they have the map piece. And they would have gotten the map at the exact same time, right? Mm-hmm. As the actual movie, except for there would have actually been a good reason to have the map. And then R2-D2 could still wake up and be like, oh, hey, R2-D2, look, we found the map. We don't need you. You know, I feel like the cop-out was so unnecessary there for R2-D2 to happen to have that map, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like...
Yeah, a little bit.
Because that... Go.
Oh,
go
that was a part I didn't think of too much because I think it kind of happens fast. Like, okay,
yeah,
we did this, we're setting up the next thing.
Well, and it happens fast, and around the ending, everything is so exciting and like hype. Like everything, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a thrill ride and stuff. So I understand what you're talking about, but yeah, anyway, continue.
Oh, I mean, I kind of wanted to just address some of the other things that you've said, because Star Wars, just like Marvel, is a hot topic that tends to be debated a lot.
Right, I got you.
I personally really liked Episode 7. I thought it was great. I thought it held up. It did get a lot of criticism for being almost exactly like A New Hope. But you mentioned that you could see the parallels of characters, right?
Right.
On one hand, I agree with you. But I think that's less because he was trying to copy A New Hope character-wise, and more because of there's always going to be those characters.
Okay.
Something that people underestimate a lot in script writing especially is structure, right? There is ideally a perfect structure to have a film, and there's certain roles that need to be filled, and there's certain events that need to happen for it to be a good film. And that might sound constricting, or that might sound like, oh, well then just every film's going to be the same. But I mean, this has been tested forever, and those beats and hitting these exact marks make for good films. And if you go to all the great films, you can see all these things hit together at the same time.
And they
go.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so in the case of Han Solo's death, especially, spoiler alert.
In
the case, exactly. Well, you did the whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
In the case of Han Solo's death, you're right in that it parallels to Ben Kenobi. But that's because both of the characters in those films are the mentors, right? So we start off with a character who doesn't know so much. This person comes in later in the film, teaches them, and then dies. And yeah, it parallels to A New Hope. It also parallels to every single other movie ever created.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be those moments. Right now, I can compare that to the Emoji Movie, because the Emoji Movie wasn't perfect, but it hit all of those beat points, and we had those characters. Right. We had the mentor come in, we had the sidekick come in, we had the sidekick leave, we have the mentor leave, we have them come back. You know, like, it hits all of those same points. And I personally believe that the characters in Episode 7 were vastly different than the characters we've seen in A New Hope. And I think part of that is because they live in a different time, right? Like, this is way after Jedis were existed. I mean, there's supposedly no Jedis aside from, Luke, who's gone AWOL. Ray was the main character, correct?
Yeah.
It's been a bit.
Ray was one of them.
Right.
Yeah, Ray was like, yeah. So, Ray, similar to Luke, right? Someone who has the Force, doesn't know they have it, need to describe it. But Luke, Luke was a sniveling little snot-nosed brat in A New Hope. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. He is completely useless for like the first half an hour to 45 minutes of the film. And he's like, well, I would love to go on this adventure, but I can't because I got my family and I got this, I got to run the moisture farm and I got to do this and I got to do that. Ray is way more self-sufficient, right? Where Luke was very dependent on anyone. Remember, he didn't even go with Ben until he came to find his parents dead, right? He needed that huge thing to motivate him.
Right.
Ray is much more self-driven. She's much more self-dependent. She's much more cool, in my opinion, than Luke.
Yeah.
And in the case of what's the other guy's name? This former
Finn.
stormtrooper.
Yeah, Finn.
Finn, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Finn, yeah, like he detracted from the bad side. He is a traitor. He is over here, and that gives a totally different perspective than you get from Obi-Wan or that you get from Han Solo.
Right.
Han Solo is old and jaded now. He doesn't fill the same role he did back then. He doesn't even fill the same role as Obi-Wan, who is super excited about teaching someone the Force and all that kind of stuff. He wants nothing to do with it, but he does it out of kind of duty and out of getting sucked in and all that kind of stuff. So even though the events parallel,
right, you're saying that
some of those
are
beat points are unavoidable, and I think the character's super unique.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren and Darth Vader, again, two very different characters,
Right.
but I think it brings something else to the table.
Right. Okay. So I totally agree with you about movies having to hit certain beats and stuff, and that's why it makes sense why a lot of people who die in movies die at the exact same time mark and stuff.
Exactly.
Because it creates it's I mean that's like it's like you said, it's just the beats the movie have to hit. I think my problem with the similarities though is that when they're hitting those beats, it feels like they're building a character solely to hit those beats, and in results, it just ends up being a lot of the same actions we've already seen. Now, the reason a lot of other movies do this, right? Every movie hits these beats, and it seems different. Is a big reason is there's also cosmetic changes, and I feel like that's where The Force Awakens kind of failed. Is that all the stormtroopers look like stormtroopers. The giant Death Star looks like the giant Death Star, and the beats are all happening. Not only are all the beats happening, they're happening in the same places essentially that we've seen. Person grows up in the desert just where like everybody else who grew up in the desert in the Star Wars series. You know, there's like a lot of cosmetic things that make it feel more like the same, and I feel like that's part of the problem. But I do understand what you're saying about like how the characters play different parts and stuff. I feel like Rey was the best developed character in that movie. I felt like I really understood Rey. Finn, on the other hand, I feel like I really didn't understand Finn. I felt like that he didn't have enough screen time. And I feel like, I'm saying I feel like a lot, but there's a kind of this theme in A Force Awakens, and that's that we have to do this now that this is over. Okay, now we got to do this. And there's like so much rushing, you know? I'm not saying in the filmmaking, I'm saying from scenes, like there's so many explosions happening. As soon as Finn and Rey meet, they don't even have like a second to get to know each other, and we don't have really a second to understand Finn, because like the moment we see Finn, right, he has to escape the place like immediately. He's with Poe, they're trying to escape on the TIE fighter, it's getting stuck, and the moment they actually start talking and stuff, you know, the thing crashes and there's a big explosion. Finn has to go to this place, and then he runs into Rey and he's saying like, oh look, those people are bad or something like that. It's been a little bit since I've seen, but before they even have a time to talk, like more events start happening and explosions start happening. They run to the Millennium Falcon, and there's just a lot of rushing in the movie that they're doing, getting from point A to point B just all the time. And I feel like the movie didn't give enough room to develop some of these characters. I feel like Rey was developed well, but Finn, I had no idea what was going on in his head. Like at any point in time, it was all simply, I'm a coward and I want to get away. And I think that's okay. I think it's an okay character trait, but I just didn't get, I feel like they didn't explore it enough because all these scenes didn't allow them to. And in result, Finn was kind of hitting a lot of these beats that were hit from previous movies, and I couldn't really see the uniqueness in Finn because the movie didn't really let me. It had so many scenes going from point A to point B that I couldn't understand, and so all I was left seeing was the parables. And I feel like that was kind of the big problem. It's not necessarily that there's so many beats they have to hit, but just how similar it was even aside those beats. And like I said, you know, the stormtroopers were all this like basically the same. You know, Kylo Ren, even though he was different than Darth Vader, he was still like he still was at the exact same spot in chain of command, right? He and this general were both arguing, and there was still the emperor who oversaw all that thing. Now, all three of those guys weren't hitting the beat. Like, those three guys weren't there because they needed to hit a beat. That wasn't a certain beat that needed to be hitted, right?
Okay, sort of. Because, especially in the case of these films, we're not just looking at one film, we're looking at essentially 3 films, right? They historically come out in trilogies of 3.
Right.
And going into this, they knew that it would be 3, right?
That's a good point, yeah.
So, there's also an arc. So, even though you have to hit these beats within the movie, you also have to hit these beats throughout the entire thing, right? One of those beats is you defeat the bad guy, and then the bad guy back stronger, or there's a stronger bad guy, right? So, like, yeah, I'm trying to think of what that would be. They, finally escape or whatever. They find the plants, but then they got to go back to destroy the thing, right? So eventually they're going to beat Kylo Ren, but then they have to beat the person past him. And if you're looking in universe, there's always 2 Siths, right? So if he's a Sith, then he has to have a Sith Lord potentially. Right. And it would be super boring if you beat the big guy first, and then you go on to the lesser guy.
Okay,
you have to build up.
So that's an excellent point. This is built for a trilogy, so they have those other characters that are built up. But there are other ways of connecting a trilogy than adding another Darth Sidious and another general. And also...
Again, I think in universe it fits very well. It would feel weird if they didn't, at least on that front. Like, Stormtroopers, okay, that was something I actually didn't think about until now, but the Death Star, even though it wasn't a Death Star, cosmetically, you're right, like, it serves the exact same purpose. That was the thing that was most, like, okay for me.
So, I also feel like relying on, like, I feel like a movie shouldn't rely too much on what's coming forward and stuff. I feel like regardless of whether or not it's in a trilogy or a universe, it should kind of, as itself, should be kind of good in all angles, right? And for an ideal movie. And I think, I feel like they really could have made a trilogy without including characters that were a lot like Darth Sidious and the other general. And I feel like that particular parable seemed especially annoying to me, especially because the Darth Sidious guy is a hologram also, and you're just like, oh, come on. Why'd you have to be that close to cosmetic? Because it's like...
It was cool, right? And it added this whole level of mystery. It was this giant hologram, and, like, you can't clearly see the guy. You're like, who is this guy? Is this Darth? Is he
actually that big? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I whenever on first watch, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's huge. Like, he's some super alien or something.
Right.
So there's parallels, but then they also push those parallels, and some of those things are kind of unavoidable to make a good film, and some of them aren't. You were talking a lot about, like, how the film felt rushed and how it was like there was always something happening.
Now, I wasn't trying to say, real quick, just for viewers' sake, I wasn't trying to say, like, the creation of the film was rushed. I was saying, like, the scene to scene was, things were happening really quickly, and I think that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
I was hearing you talk about that, right? You were sitting there, you were like, here's what was happening. And I was excited because stuff is happening, right? They're always, it's movies and stories are about conflict, right?
Right.
So there has to be that conflict, and nothing should be easy for your heroes. If your hero is like, hey, we're in the desert, let's not be in the desert, they shouldn't just, press a button on their watch and teleport to the not desert, right? There's got to be some sort of struggle. So they're running from the people, they're being chased down. Yeah, there's always something, but I personally felt like, I mean, as you said, Rey was well developed. I feel like Finn was pretty well developed too, because we so clearly know what he was, and he is so clearly not that anymore. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we might not know a lot about his history, but he was also just a generic soldier who was kind of brainwashed and kind of, I mean, not brainwashed, but like, indoctrinated, and he's a military guy. I mean, so we can see all those other stormtroopers, and that was his past. He wasn't very extraordinary. He was that. So even though he doesn't straight up say, here's my life story, we can pretty clearly see his life story through some of the world building, through the other characters.
Through the events too?
Yeah, because he was wearing a mask, and then now he's not. He was that, and now he's so radically not.
Okay.
And it might not be the most graceful of things, but it also doesn't need a whole lot of exposition.
Right.
Because the exposition is the entire movie as they're running from the stormtroopers, because that's what he was. He's confronted by his old friends, by the people who see him and recognize him as a traitor.
Okay, right.
Because of that change.
So, so you're saying that his character is well established, possibly through the events also, because all those scenes where they're rushing from stop to stop, that's kind of building his character as a whole. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like,
if you have a film, especially like an action film, if you're doing Dinner with Andre, it's a little bit of a different beast.
right.
But if you're doing a blockbuster film, you got to keep things moving. You can't have the characters sit down for half an hour and talk about their feelings.
Okay.
Because that's not fun. But you can, you always hear show, don't tell, right? You want to show kind of how they can feel this or how they can do that. You don't need to have a huge conversation for that. And also, you don't want things to be boring. So things should always be a struggle. They should always be running from something. You should always be doing this. Because that is fun and entertaining to watch, not just people sitting on the Millennium Falcon going, yeah, what about this time? What about this time?
Yeah, I think that's where I don't really agree with a lot of the common viewers, though, is that I kind of prefer more of a relaxed development of characters. Like, I feel like dialogue is extremely important, but when you're running around a lot, you're not getting that much dialogue to each other. So a reference to A New Hope, you had Obi-Wan Kenobi and, or I should say Ben. Like I said, I grew up with the prequels. I'm sorry. But yeah, you have Ben and Luke, and there's like this awesome scene where Ben, Luke, and Han Solo and Chewbacca are in the Millennium Falcon, and Luke's training with the lightsaber in that little ball that shoots like bullets and stuff. I felt like this scene was so amazing because there wasn't a lot of action going on, but there was a lot of understanding about all these different characters. Ben is trying to teach Luke what's going on. Luke's getting frustrated. Han Solo is like, this is a waste of time, man. You shouldn't be... like I don't believe in the Force or whatever. I'm not a great Han Solo impersonator, but there was it was just the scene that like it took it slow and it kind of developed all these characters and stuff. I felt like there wasn't nearly enough of that in A New Hope. Scenes that like where they just sat down and talked so that they could figure out each other. Thus, I feel like a lot of the relationships weren't built up well enough between the characters. For one example, Poe and Finn, when they were inside that R-Wing and they got out and stuff, they were like acting like they were like best friends and stuff, like, yeah, we made it out and stuff. And it's like, well, hang on, you guys might not even like each other. You could be sitting with a serial killer. It's like,
but they just got out of this crazy thing, right? They just crash landed. They went through an incredibly bonding experience. I don't know about you, but if I was in a plane that was crashing, it would be terrifying. But if you made it, you'd be happy, right? You wouldn't care who you're with because you guys made it. And even if it's your worst enemy, you guys would still kind of have that bonding moment of like, holy crap, we just survived this. Well, in my opinion, that's a good example of showing, not telling. We don't need them to sit there and go, hey, I like you. Yeah, I like you too. You're pretty cool. Because we can show why they like each other. And we can show that they're bonded because, yeah, they just survived this incredible thing. And it doesn't matter that he's a stormtrooper and he's a rebel pilot because they just survived this. And now we know why they like each other. So we don't need to sit down and say, I like you too.
Well, I don't know. Okay, I feel like just because I rescued someone out from a thing, I feel like my first reaction wouldn't be, oh, we made it out. I mean, knowing me, I'd probably be terrified, peeing myself and stuff like that. But like if I was in his position to where I had as much experience as him and stuff and I was getting away, I feel like I wouldn't immediately rub off to him just because we got out of the situation. There's a lot of scenes from different movies where big events will happen and the two characters, as soon as it's over, they'll be hostile to each other. Because, like, I still don't know you and stuff like that. I feel like it was just a little bit too soon after they're flying away, right? Like, if it happened after they crashed or something, it would make a little bit more sense. But they still weren't home free. They were still flying away from, like, evil guys and stuff, and they were getting pretty happy.
I would argue... Okay, so there's also tons of different people in this world, right? There's like 7 billion people, all unique. Everyone has their own reactions to something. Poe and Finn bonded really quickly, right? I don't know if you've seen Poe. He's also a pretty friendly dude, right?
That's true.
And there's the matter of this. Okay, now look at Finn and Rey. Did they have the same relationship? No. They got and they escaped, and they were still very reluctant towards each other, and then they separate, and then they got back. Just because one person doesn't have that reaction doesn't mean that another reaction is invalid.
That's true.
They showed both reactions. They showed the quick bonding. They showed the people who went through something and then still said, hey, piss off.
Right. Okay. All right. That's a fair point. Well, I don't really want to dominate the conversation with Star Wars. Jacob, you haven't really shown a movie that you are particularly interested in. Would you like a shot at talk about a movie you like? Whether it be recent or old, just anything that you'd really, just because I know like we've been bringing up the movies for the past podcast. So if you got anything.
They back in the 80s they made a adaptation of the board game Clue, which was a comedy, and I liked that one a lot. I disappointed in Netflix because they I don't think it's on there anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because that's how I
Exchange
watched
around.
it all the time. Because of licensing and everything. But it's still disappointing that it's not on there anymore. And I think it was through Netflix that I realized that I really like that movie.
It's a fantastic movie. It's really good.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially because of Tim Curry.
Yes, he's really good. And that ending scene where they're running around the house trying to do things, I mean, that is iconic.
Yes.
Patrick, are you ready to be sold on this film?
Okay, go for it.
Okay,
Shoot.
so it's a movie based on Clue, right? So
Right.
you get all the Clue characters, they come together, someone's murdered, right, and they kind of have to figure it out, right? So that's the basic premise, which is a pretty good premise for a movie. Out of the board game to movie adaptations, this is pretty solid.
yeah.
Right?
This
I
would
gotcha.
probably be the best one to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
They released this movie, across the whole nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have like 3 or 4 different endings that go with different versions of the film. So you get someone in California who is like, oh, this person did it. But then you get someone in Oregon who's like, no, this person did it. And then you get someone in, the East Coast who's like, no, nobody did it because it was this. There's like 3 or 4 different endings that they just released in conjunction with the different things of the film.
Oh
So
my gosh.
nobody could really, yeah. And so like now if you watch it, like they have all the different endings, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
like all compiled together. But it is incredible. And I can't imagine what that would be like seeing that in theaters back in the day
Oh,
before the
God.
internet and all that kind of stuff.
So you're saying like from theater to theater, it changed depending on where it was. Is that what you're saying? The ending?
I actually didn't know that
Sort of.
about the movie.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because there's a bunch of different endings, and like depending on the theater you were at, it would be a different ending.
Oh, that's so cool. I
Yeah.
really like that. That's
It
an
is
awesome
it is
idea.
really,
Yeah, because
really cool.
I've only ever seen the the final release, like they released it to DVD or
Yeah.
VHS.
But even like I know on DVD they have all the endings.
Yeah.
And that'll normally like play after the credits or before. Like I forget, I've only seen the movie once, but
Yeah.
if you watch it digitally
it-
now, you can typically
Yeah,
see all the endings.
it's like the 3 different endings. They go one after the other.
Yeah.
It's like after the first quote unquote ending, they go, "That's how it could have happened." But what about this? And then after that one, they said, "But here's how it really happened." And then they showed
Yeah.
the third ending.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's quite awesome. Now, is it like very mystery based, kind of like the board game? Like,
Yeah, it's mystery based.
A lot of mystery, lots of lights off, lights on, dead body
Okay.
sort of scenarios. But it's also very over the top. It's very aware of itself.
Oh,
The
yeah.
characters are all very characters. It
Okay.
plays into kind of that, because that's also a type of movie that you'd see commonly. So it kind of really plays and digs into that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the endings were just a really nice touch of kind of self-awareness and cool outside the box thinking and stuff. It's a good thing.
And spoiler, the real ending, quote unquote, is all of them killed at least one person throughout
Yeah.
that entire thing.
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
it animated?
No, it's live action.
It's live.
Okay.
It's live action.
Now you're saying like there's like a lot of like lights flickering off and dead bodies and stuff, but it's not like a horror film, right? Like
No.
Okay. very
It's very melodramatic.
Okay.
It's comedic, definitely 100% comedic, but like
Right.
it plays into that satire of kind of the really melodramatic murder mysteries and that kind of
Okay.
thing,
And-
lightning striking outside, it's raining throughout the entire film sort of thing.
right. That's awesome. That sounds like
Yeah.
like just a relaxing watch.
It's fun. It is a fun watch.
Is it?
And
Sorry,
nice
go
thing
ahead.
about watching it so many times on Netflix is each and every time I was looking at a specific detail on,
Yeah.
on how the real ending tied into how the whole movie was going.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love it when like there's movies or even games that you can just replay or rewatch, but you can focus on specific parts and stuff, and you still get more enjoyment out of it. One of my favorite shows of all time is Arrested Development. Actually, no, it's
Oh, yeah.
actually my favorite show of all time. I've just it's perfect. I think it's absolutely amazing. I've rewatched it a couple different times, and there's so many different things you can focus on, and you'll get a completely different experience after you rewatch it. So I have a lot of respect for movies
It is
and games that
so
can do that.
deep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's incredibly deep.
Dude,
I've
season
only
5
seen it.
is coming. Season 5 is
I know,
coming.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
I've seen it once. I started watching it with a friend who hasn't really watched it since. And I'm rewatching BoJack Horseman because season 4 is coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I think I'm going to rewatch Arrested Development because it is incredibly
Definitely.
dense. It
Definitely.
is amazing.
Yeah, the day they have a release date for season 5, I'm gonna rewatch it again. I've already rewatched it like 6 times, but I'll rewatch it again as soon as I get the date. Dude, we should like text each other our reactions of the episodes and stuff like that. But yeah, so
Live tweet.
would you say, Jacob, that like the mysteries that are happening in the Clue movie are like intriguing you to making you like guess every step of the way like what's gonna happen next? I don't know if you can like remember back to like the first time you watched it, like.
I can. I think I keep on going back to watching it because I want to see how all of the sequences leading up to the true ending tie into it. Okay. And the more I realize, the first 2 endings that were shown, they don't really make sense when you look back and compare it to the true ending. Mm-hmm. Like how some of those events don't really make sense when they tie into the first 2 endings where they have one specific killer.
So that's actually pretty interesting. So you're saying there actually is like a true ending and the other ones won't make sense. That's actually really cool. Yeah, so they're actually it's actually a game. It's like actually the game of Clue. You need to figure out what the actual I like that.
Like for me, those first 2 endings, when I keep on looking back through the actual real movie, there's some stuff that just seems out of place when the ending is explained. Mm-hmm. But with that true ending, all of it makes sense. It's like for all of it, it was like it was impossible for one person to do all of that at that specific time. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that's what made it a lot more hilarious. Now that I know that there were different endings for different theaters.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think I've got a couple of movie recommendations that I need to watch now. Spider-Man: Homecoming and the Clue movie, if I could somehow find that. I don't think it's not on Netflix, right?
It's probably on Amazon for cheap or something.
I was about to say. It might even be on Amazon streaming, because normally when a movie leaves one thing, it hops over to another. So if you usually check that, check out Amazon.
Okay, definitely. Well, here's an interesting thing. I've been wanting to add some more segments to the show, and while they mainly apply to games and stuff, one of the segments I wanted to add that's kind of like the question segment we usually have is kind of a sales pitch, where you basically just do a quick sales pitch of a game you really want other people in the group to try, or the viewers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we've already done some sales pitches for movies, so like I feel like I now need to check out like Spider-Man: Homecoming and Clue the movie or whatever. Does anyone have like any other that they want to do a quick sales pitch on, just to kind of transition not only to kind of the end of the podcast, but also transition to the next podcast, which we are going to have a new segment for sale pitching games.
I'd like to sales pitch Frank.
Frank.
Frey, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a weird film.
Okay.
But it's not crazy weird, right? Like, there's weird films where you watch that and you're like, ugh. This has a bit of a weird premise. Because it's a guy with a fake head, and he always wears the fake head.
Oh, that. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I
so
put
it's on
the
Netflix?
IMDb in the chat.
Yeah, so check it out. It's got Michael Fassbender. It's also got, what's the guy's name? I forget the main character's name, the actor who plays him, but he was the guy in Ex Machina. He was in Star Wars, because he always acts with the guy who acted as Poe.
Right. Okay.
So it's like that pair, but I forget what his name is. But he's the lead, and it's a really cool movie about creating stuff, about collaborating with other people, as well as kind of what it means to be a good person, a sane person. Kind of. Do the troubles that we have in our life inspire us or hold us back, and all that kind of stuff?
Right.
All wrapped in this really bizarre, quirky, funny movie about a guy who wears a thing on his head, and this weird indie band that, plays theremins and makes songs about rugs and walls and stuff.
All right.
But it is a good film, and
all right. Well, if it's on Netflix, there's like no reason I shouldn't watch it, so I pretty much have to.
And Michael Fassbender, am I right?
I don't think I know who that is, unfortunately.
He's in a lot of blockbusters. He was the main guy in like Assassin's Creed. He is He's in Alien Covenant. I know, because he's in a lot of big blockbusters. But he's also done like Macbeth and some like more dramatic pieces. He has like some real acting chops to him too.
All right.
And he's the guy wearing the head the whole time. So he's this really big actor, right? Who's in these major blockbuster films, starring in this little indie film
with a
where
giant head.
You can't even see his face throughout the entire
That's
film,
great.
and he still does an amazing job. So
All right.
check it out.
Yeah. Jacob, do you got any quick sales pitches for movies? You don't have to.
I don't really have
Okay.
anything. Just Clue.
All right.
Just check out Glue.
Just
Yeah,
check out Clue.
it really is a good comedy movie.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do a quick sales pitch on a classic movie that I haven't seen in a long time, but I didn't know I was doing this segment, and I literally just came up with it. I was like, "What's a movie I like that not a lot of people see this?" I don't know. Classic movie. Here we go. The Jungle Book, the original animated film by Disney. I rewatched that relatively recently, like last year. I was like, "Oh man, I like this. I really, it's a really darn good movie." It's hard to do a sales pitch for it because it's just like so universally understood as a good movie. But you got that awesome music, you got the lovable characters,
The animation.
the animation is really pleasant to see. Like even nowadays when you're used to seeing like a lot better animation, it's still like you get to see effort through it, right? It's like that old saying, it takes a lot of effort to make something look effortless. And that's what a lot of standard movies are, right? You look at the Emoji Movie, you look at that animation, and the first thing that comes to your mind might not be like, oh, that took a lot of time to work on, you know? But this, because you could see how hard animation is through this, like, that's why it's just a delight to see the scenes with all the fire and the crazy, and even just the crazy artwork they did. Like, the backgrounds and stuff, the colors.
All of that stuff is hand drawn too.
Right.
Like you can totally see like the lines. I mean, you can see it all moving and coming to life. It is incredible.
It is quite incredible.
I worked at an after school program. I was like a dance after school program thing, and we would always put on a musical. So like, I think the last one that I heard that they did, I don't work there anymore, but was Alice in Wonderland, right? So all the kids get together and they put their own spin on it, but it's dance numbers that tell that story, but it's like modern songs to get like, because it's elementary school and that sort of thing.
Right.
Anyways, whenever I worked there, we did the Jungle Book, and so we rotate to new schools every couple of weeks. And whenever we go to a new school, we always start off by watching the movie. So I've seen the Jungle Book. We would have like 3 or 4 different classes in an afternoon, and then we rotated like 5 or 6 times throughout the semester. And so I've seen it like 30, 40 times.
Oh my gosh.
Holds up every time.
It's so good.
It's really good.
It's crazy how good. Like, and you see, that was kind of like a kids movie that was kind of good, even though it was a kids movie.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of modern kids movies aren't good, and they kind of hide behind the excuse as, well, it's for kids. They're not going to understand this. And that's why I've got a lot of respect for some of the old Disney movies like Jungle Book, or even a little bit newer than that, you know, like, or just the classics, you know, Lion King, all those animated ones that were really good. And obviously there were some bad ones too, but like, I've got a lot of respect for those ones. And the Jungle Book, I mean, it's just a blast. You're going to be dancing through the whole movie, just hearing that music, man. It's so much fun. It's such a fun movie. And I love it.
I think children's literature is one of the most underrated genres of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as an adult, you can read, you know, the Chronicles of Narnia, even like The Hobbit is considered children's literature for a lot of things.
Right.
And you can still find awesome movies like that first off, like Pixar and that sort of thing are fantastic. But if you go independent, you can find awesome movies. For example, The Little Prince, the Netflix original one, I thought was awesome. And it puts a spin on the original novel and that sort of thing, but the animation is gorgeous, the story is heartwarming, and there's tons of stuff like that. Coraline, both the movie and the book, were both things that I really enjoyed.
Loved Coraline so much. Oh, I wish we had more time to talk about Coraline.
Yeah.
Dude,
some good stuff.
I wanted to talk to you about Coraline too, because that movie's like totally up your alley. I should have brought that up. But
I just rewatched that again recently.
You did?
And
it's
held
so
up
good. It's so good.
We'll save that for next time.
Yeah, next time.
The next movie podcast.
I definitely think we will do a movie podcast in the future because there's a lot to talk about in the movie range, and it's certainly a lot of fun. So maybe if we have another slower news day, one day we'll do another movie podcast. Hopefully we could get Tom back on too, because he would have certainly enjoyed this.
He'd probably be a little better bringing something to the table than me because my forte is more video games than movies.
Yeah. It's okay. That's how I feel about the video games. But I'll have you guys know, I am ready to talk about Magikarp Jump the next time we do a video game episode.
All right,
Yes.
we'll do it.
Because
we'll do
I
it.
played that all summer.
Are
and I
you
still play it
serious?
to this day. Oh,
What?
yeah.
Oh my God.
I was playing it during the podcast a little bit.
Oh my
'cause
gosh, Talon! Are you serious?
I started playing that game the night I first guessed on here, right?
I find that very
I'm
funny.
speed running that game. I'm
Oh
trying to
my
get
gosh.
100%.
Oh my
but
gosh.
the thing is that they release new updates. And so I have to try to 100% it before the next update. But I think they just released the last update, and so I'm working on 100%ing it. And I'll
right.
tweet you guys whenever I
All
whenever
right,
I get
sounds
that.
good.
You guys will have to. You guys have been timing me, right? You guys have set the clock.
Yep. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're still playing that. Most app games you put down after the first couple months, but here
It's
you
smooth.
are.
It's fantastic.
I played it for 2 seconds and I
Do you want to?
deleted
Do you
it.
guys want to know? Do you guys want to know what Magikarp I'm on? So whenever a Magikarp reaches full level, or it gets carried off by a Pidgeotto, or you beat the league with it, it retires, right? And a new one. Now keep in mind, in between updates, whenever I don't have any more patterns yet because I got them all, I I would slow things down. So if I got a Magikarp that had a coin bonus, I would only do events with it, and I would only do things, so it would level up very slowly to get me the most gold, right? Because that's what I needed at the time. So sometimes it slowed down. I'm currently on my 236th Magikarp.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And the last Magikarp I had for a week because I was totally just squeezing every last coin out of it.
Oh my gosh,
But
dude.
it's gotten to the point where, like, I can max level a Magikarp in one sitting. So if I wanted to,
Wow.
I could just churn out Magikarps
You know,
all day long.
some people
So if you
get
have suggestions-
addicted to Pokemon Go, but then here Talon is content with one Pokemon. Just one Pokemon jumping up and down.
Magikarp's all you need, baby.
All right. Well,
right.
like I said, we'll definitely have another movie podcast in the future. There's also gaming podcasts on the last Friday of every month. We got a couple sales pitches, or the sales pitches. I'm gonna have to find a good way to say this. The movies we want you to watch have been said. The suggestions were Spider-Man: Homecoming, right? Oh no, what did you say? You said Frank, Frank,
Frank, but also Spider-Man Homecoming.
Frank, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Since Jacob didn't have one, we'll just say Frank, Homecoming for Jacob, and then what was it? What did I say? Jungle Book.
Jungle Book,
Check
yeah.
out those
Jungle Book.
movies. We're gonna end it now. This is wow. We actually went as longer than I thought. This was kind of a stranger one because we were rushing at the beginning and I was late and stuff. And I'm sorry. I'm so unprofessional. Kill me, but don't actually, please. In fact, instead of killing me, what you can do is hit that follow button to get notified every time we go live with this podcast. Or you can follow me on Twitter by clicking. You can follow me on Twitter by going to twitter.com/patnet7 so that you can follow and check out updates there. Or you can also check out my main channel down below on that button. If you're watching this on the VOD, you can also hit subscribe if you want to see future episodes. You guys know the drill. Why am I even telling you guys all this? Huge thanks to Talon and Jacob for joining us. Jacob, if you want to plug in some of your stuff and what's going on in the upcoming month for you.
Oh yeah, so my normal forte is video games, and I run a channel where I do Let's Plays, and since Splatoon 2 is out and I actually have that, I'm going to be doing videos on Splatoon 2.
Nice.
And my current Let's Play is Oracle of Ages. After that, I'm going to go straight into Oracle of Seasons, and
wow.
I'm going to continue from there.
Very fun.
Nice.
You can find me on YouTube and on VidMe, MrViperFang. I'm that name on those sites. I'm on Twitter as MrViperFang. That's pretty much my handle under every social media site under the sun.
Perfect.
Cool.
Talon, you got
And
something for us?
yeah, well, as many of you guys know, I was part of the Tales of Passing Fantasy podcast. Unfortunately, they have gone on hiatus, but you can still find our old episodes on there and give those a listen. And then we'll also be releasing some of the stuff that we have recorded but not entirely edited somewhere down the line. And then I'm also going to throw a bone to some friends of mine because I know this is normally a video game podcast. And they also do video game stuff. So they're called the Royal Gaming Battalion. And they do, all the Let's Plays and that sort of thing. Lots of cool stuff. So go and check them out. There's some friends of mine. And yeah, I'll throw them a bone out there. So
Awesome. Perfect. Also, I think it should be noted that he does still have 3 episodes out on his podcast, and they're pretty darn good, so you should check them out if you're into, how would you describe it? You used some good words to describe it.
it is a sci-fi, roughly, anthology podcast. So
Right.
each episode follows a bunch of original short stories around a certain theme, and we have 20 plus voice actors. It's all edited, it's all fully produced.
Okay.
And that came out once a month on the new moon, so that kind of plays into it as well. So
But you got 3 of them, which is good.
You got
so
3 of them, and
that'll
we'll got
last you
2
some
more
time.
coming out
They're
at
also
some
on
point.
iTunes, which is pretty cool. I would love to get this podcast on iTunes sometimes, but there's
Yeah.
a couple hoops you got to jump through that I'm not sure if I can.
Yeah.
But
It's easy. You'll be fine.
all right. In the meantime, you can always
iTunes,
check out the
Google Play, Stitcher, all that
video on demand version on Patnet 2, or you can also check out the video on demand here on the Twitch channel. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Like I said, last Friday of every month. So the next podcast will be on, let me check, be on September 29th. We'll likely be going back to games that one. Probably talk about some of the minor stuff that's happening. Like, I know Sonic Mania was released. A lot of people are really hyped about that.
I love it.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to hear some thoughts on Sonic Mania, as well as even Splatoon 2 has been pretty popular, so I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of stuff there. Make sure you guys tune in then. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next podcast. So long.
Hello. Bye-bye.